Today, we are going to be ranking every Season 4 item in Chapter 5. More specifically, we're going to be watching Resub's video. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, I'll have a link down below in the description. But we're going to follow along and see just how bad his opinions are. Or how good, because he's the GOAT. Alright, let's get started.
There are 30
let's get it going.
In Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4, and I'm going to rank
30 items.
At the end, I'll then rate the overall season meta out of 10. Let's start
fish sticks on
with the
screen.
hammer pump shotgun.
Ooh.
It has a small reticule, it's accurate, deals consistent damage without dealing too much when you hit a body shot. So in my eyes, it's probably the most balanced shotgun there is, and I honestly don't have much more to say.
Okay, wait, hold on. Here's the tier list we got. Volt, please, nerf. Strong AF, perfect. No complaints, early game, non-comp. So he's got like this is a weird tier list. So like what? The middle is like the best. This is like S tier. Perfect. All right.
Say than that. Next up is the ever so
I'd agree with perfect.
Gatekeeper. Unlike the hammer shotgun, I
like the
hate
Gatekeeper
this gun, and
what?
I wish this was gone from the game. It is far too easy to use, and honestly, it's just utterly skillless. It's too easy to 2 or 3 shot someone, and it just rewards you for running straight at another player. Please, let's have this removed. It's annoyed me for 2 seasons.
Wow, I was not expecting that. I was not. Bro, Resub going in off for it. Gatekeeper Volt. I mean, I guess, like, it's pretty overpowered, and it's very simple to use. Yeah, fair. I don't know if I'd Volt, but I mean, I like the Gatekeeper. The Gatekeeper's my favorite shotty, but maybe I just suck at the game.
Now, next up is the new Sovereign Shotgun. Now, the new Sovereign Shotgun, I've done a whole
I don't like
on,
this.
Is incredibly good. If you aim
Is
down
it?
sights, it actually acts more like a pump, where it does a lot bigger
130.
one-shot damage, and the crosshair gets really, really small, which allows you, again, to be way more accurate with it. There's a lot of really useful situations, like in endgame, if you just sit with a box open while players are rotating past you, you can pretty much guarantee yourself a 100+ damage shot.
I've barely used this shotty.
In box, as you've just aimed to the upper chest, and it's really easy to just 2-shot someone from around 2 tiles away. So it's kind of close to the tank. It's not as stupid and easy to use as the Gatekeeper, but in certain situations, I feel like this is just incredibly overpowered. This enemy is going into the no complaints.
I didn't realize it's that good.
I think it's probably the best shotgun in the actual meta, but a lot of players are still carrying the Gatekeeper, and a lot of players are saying it only hits
It's pretty quick. It's like the lever.
They haven't figured out that you need to aim for the upper chest yet, though. Moving on to the assault rifles. The first one is the
I like the
Striker
AUG.
Burst assault rifle, which is, I would say, new, but it has been buffed for this. Now, this is basically...
This is like the Chapter 3 one, right? I actually really liked the AUG from Chapter 3. So I'm interested to see what he has to say about this, because it's basically the same.
Undoubtedly the best gun for medium and long range.
Yeah.
Because the other tools...
For comp as well and tags.
Later, have way too much fall-off damage and don't guarantee enough tags. So for Storm Surge games, just not going to be good enough whatsoever. The main issue this gun has is that it's quite difficult to use when box fighting. Structure damage is the same as the regular damage, and if you didn't know, the gold deals 35 body shot, which is also 35 structure damage. So this means that in one burst, this will deal 70 damage to structures. Now generally this is quite strong. However, the issue is this meets a very critical threshold where you're replacing a wood wall. It'll take 3 bursts rather than 2, which can make it quite frustrating. So if you shoot a wood wall twice with it, you're still going to have to shoot a third shot to be able to actually replace it or shoot through it. However,
interesting
that you can get bleed through damage with the second shot of the burst, but this isn't actually that reliable for spraying, and a lot of the other weapons...
This is what I love about Resub. Like, he doesn't just give his opinions on a weapon. Like, he gives statistics and, like, background information about each weapon that you didn't really know.
The other weapons are bare, but this actually is kind of balanced out by the fact that it's so good at long range mid ranges that it's not the best for box fighting. So for the Striker Burst AR, I'm going to put this into the Strong AF tier. The other AR is the Striker Assault Rifle, and this is pretty much the best overall box fighting kind of weapon you can get in this season, in my opinion. It's the most consistent for if you're in their face trying to spray them. It's the most consistent for wall replacing. It's really good at mid ranges, but it kind of falls off at long ranges.
I don't like the recoil.
Is much better. For me, this is
so hard to aim with.
No complaints tier. And the final assault rifle in the game is the
That's
Combat Assault Rifle. Now, this is pretty much worse than the Striker Assault Rifle in every way.
Yuck.
One lower rarity, so say blue in comparison to purple, is then the same damage per second. So the Striker is almost always a better damage per second. On top of this,
it's actually pretty good.
100% more vertical recoil. So it's very difficult to control when you start spraying, which again, at medium
I hate weapons with recoil, like that much recoil.
It's spread, so the randomness is 20 to 40% better. However, the vertical recoil being so bad, and the fact that it deals less damage per second, I just think the Striker is almost always going to be better. But it is actually still really strong, so I'm going to put this into the no complaints tier. So a really overall pretty good assault rifle.
Volt it, bro. Volt it.
In my opinion. Moving on to the
Don't give it a chance.
We've got 2, and the first one is the new dual micro.
Okay, these are good.
Now these you actually
are good.
cannot put mods on whatsoever, which
Oh,
I was quite
what?
surprised at. I did not realize. But if
I didn't know
you're
that.
only one tile radius, or you're in a box, or you're trying to spray walls to replace and things like this, these are incredibly powerful. If you're a player who loves to get in a box right into someone's face, this is one of the most powerful weapons of all
I'd put
time.
in strong AF. I don't think perfect, but strong
One of
AF.
the biggest downsides is that at medium and long range, it's really difficult to do any damage whatsoever.
Well,
Now,
they're
we're probably all
SMGs,
used to
so
the
that's fair.
Thunderburst being incredibly powerful at medium and close ranges, but to be honest with you, this actually isn't really what an SMG should be like whatsoever, so it has made the dual micro SMGs feel kind of rubbish. The reality is, they are really strong when you're in box, and if someone edits, you can just keep spraying at their box. But because they're so good in close range and so bad in everywhere else, I'm going to put them into the no complaints tier. But I think once players start to actually get good,
I think strong AF
these potentially might need a close range nerf. The other SMG is the Hyper SMG. Now this is a little bit better, and you can also put mods on this too. Now the reality is, this is kind of just overshone by.
I hate it. I hate this weapon.
Tier. It's good, but I don't really see it being a staple in any pro or any good player trying to just carry this. So for me, this is just going into the early game only tier. So moving on to the pistols, and the first one is the Ranger pistol, which has been in for pretty much, you know, the last couple of seasons, and it's always a really.
I actually love the pistol. Like, maybe that's just me, but recently I've loved it. Like chapter 4, I'd almost take this like over an SMG.
Really solid gun. You can run this with one player running an assault rifle and one player running the pistol. And given the fact that a lot of the SMGs don't have that much range on them, the pistol actually is probably a pretty good option. It's still the only gun in the game that has a 2x headshot multiplier, so it's still incredibly powerful, and it really rewards you for having good aim.
Yeah.
For me, the pistol is going into the
I
perfectly
feel like,
balanced
whoa,
tier.
perfect.
It's really strong, but it has a small magazine size. It's not very spammable, and
I feel like they changed it
to use. The last pistol is the
from
new
last season.
Monarch pistol. Now this thing is kind of insane, in particular when you remember it uses small ammo and not medium
Pro's
ammo.
editor
Like
is
a lot
awesome.
of the other things like revolvers used to use this medium ammo, and then things like the Mammoth pistol and whatever the other one, the Deagle, used heavy ammo. So the fact that this is so strong and it uses small bullets or light bullets is really nuts. What is this gun? Now when you aim down sight, this actually does 60.
This gun's really fun.
More damage. So with the Mythic,
I actually
for example,
rate this gun.
Takes you from a 49 body shot all the way up to an.
It's like Han Solo's
81.
pistol.
So it's really strong for mid-game rotations, just tagging people as they go. And then for a headshot,
Nothing will ever be as good as the Mammoth pistol. You can't change my mind. That was the Deagle Demon right there.
it goes from 83 to 130.
This is pretty fun.
So this is incredibly powerful. Not only that, it has a bullet gravity scale of 2. Now, this might not mean anything to you, but that's essentially how much the bullets dip over time. For reference, the burst assault rifle is 3, and the striker assault rifle is 3.5.
Okay, I never knew this was a thing. What is gravity scale? That's crazy. So like the further you're away, the more it'll dip. It's like how much it will dip over time. I think that's what he's saying.
So that means essentially the bullets dip much less than any other gun in the meta, which makes it easier for hitting shots at range, and it was clearly designed for this. Not only that, there's a really low damage drop-off. So at 75 meters, you're going to lose 1 damage per shot, and at 100 meters, you're going to lose 2.
Bro, am I back in school? What the? Wait, centimeters. Bro, this is so advanced. Damage, headshot damage, structure damage, distance.
Damage drop off. So it's really easy just to continue to get tags with this, and this was clearly designed as a sort of storm surge weapon. So for the Monarch pistol, this is going into the strong AF tier. I can't comfortably say that this is really balanced after being hit in the head by it a couple times. Speaking of course, there are mythics in the game. We currently have 3 weapons, and then we'll get on to some of the other ones later. The first one is the 1 hour.
So yeah, his tier list is very like unbiased. It's very like, it's based on how well the gun will fit into the meta or item. It's very not opinion based, which
One I already mentioned.
I actually quite like.
Dr. Doom's Monarch pistol. Now this is the mythic version of the pistol, and for any of these mythics you can't attach mods to them, which is a really important factor, because when you actually look at the mods that the Dr. Doom's Monarch pistol has, it only has one, and that is the Hollow 13 scope. Now that being said, this gun comes with 9 bullets instead of 7. However, because it doesn't have the drum mag attachment to put it there, it doesn't have the downside of a slower reload of the drum mag mod. And of course, the mythic of this pistol is also going into the the strong AF tier. This thing is really strong. All of these stats and damages that I'm mentioning, by the way, big shout out to Assyrian on Twitter. Go and follow them. They provide a ton of stats for my videos. They're not sponsoring this, but they're always just super useful to me. So go show them some support. Next is the M Frost Striker Burst AR. Just exactly the same as a Burst AR. However, this one does 2 more body shot damage. So this is 37 body shot.
Bro, give me that.
It has a headshot of 55.5. Now, this means that if you hit 2 shots into their head, that's 111 damage. Now, already also comes with the muzzle brake attachment, so it's clearly designed to do a lot of damage.
That is
at mid and long
insane,
ranges.
actually.
However, the downside of this
is that in
if you're
comp?
actually looking for something to do damage at a much longer range, you can't put a 4x scope on it because obviously it's a mythic. Again, I think you're going to be doing plenty of damage with the red eye scope that's already on it, so you should be completely fine.
That's so
However, it
good
just
for
doesn't
Surge if you have that.
which I don't think will be a problem for the majority of people, let's be real. This is going into the strong AF tier. It's a mythic, like, who obviously. And the final weapon mythic here is Mysterio's Sovereign Shotgun. Now, this does 105 body shot damage, which is very considerable, and the headshot does 160 as well. So this gun is really strong. It's kind of all of the similar things that we
I need to use this shotgun
before. Just basically apply here as well.
I don't play the game enough.
Are laser, suppressor, and the red eye sight. And laser makes basically all of these shotguns have a 10% more tighter spread. So again, if you're struggling with doing low damage, putting a laser on can help with that a little bit here. Again, a really strong gun going into the strong AF. The mythics this season, pretty well balanced for a change. You know,
yeah.
At the time, they're not as broken as some of the other stuff that we've seen throughout the last couple of seasons.
I agree with that.
On to consumables. Now, there's a couple here we're just going to rapid fire through. Small pots, big pots. They're going into perfectly balanced. Like, you can't change those whatsoever. Bandages, we're going to slap them into early game only because it's bandages. Like, who's going to carry those?
Bob Bandages extra.
I'm putting medkits, their first one, into the please nerf tier.
Damn.
Now, if you've not played much competitive and maybe you're casual, you're going to say, why are you ever going to need to nerf medkits? They just heal you for 100. And
yeah,
that
but
by
heal
itself
games
is amazing, but they
for
cause a ton
comp.
of problems in endgame where people are just consecutively popping them and surviving in Storm. And
yeah, I agree with that.
Off. I'd much rather see there
They're
be
pretty
a
strong at the
cooldown
moment.
added between medkits, say 2 seconds between so you can't pop the next one, maybe 3. That would prevent a lot of heal-offs in the end game happening. This also just would in no way impact the
medkit cooldown would be insane.
Medkits that I think just needs to happen at this point.
It'd be
like,
so
how many
weird.
times is a casual ever going to try and pop multiple medkits in a row? So this is something that would benefit competitive, but in no way be a negative to the rest of the player base. Next is Chug Splash. These are obviously incredibly good for healing in duos, and also just for, again, unfortunately, heal.
I love
off,
chuggies.
as I kind of mentioned with the medkits too. I don't have a big problem with Chug Splashes. They're relatively difficult to find, so it's not like you're going to be carrying 12 each in your duo, or 60 or 18 or whatever. So I think they're relatively well balanced. Quick heals, we're putting these into the no.
I miss the
complaints
slurp
tier.
juices.
The newly unvaulted Flowberries. Now,
Chapter
these,
4
let's
slurp
be
juice.
real, give you 15 shield. The Flowberry effect doesn't last that long, so I'm just gonna have to slap these in really only in the early game. Unless you're really scuffed and you just can't find any other heals, you can definitely carry these. But the reality is you're probably going to want to carry any other shields instead. More importantly, the Flowberry Fizz. So if you land in the south of the map in particular, the Flowberry Fizz feels much better than it ever has. Now, this is because the Nitro effect is completely removed this
Just
season.
tastes better.
If you go through any of the Nitro rings with Fizz, you're going to still fly really far. Now, other people don't have the advantage of when they land, they have the Nitro effect to keep sprinting. You can keep kind of sliding after that. Important note, if you run through a Nitro ring without jumping, you will die to fall damage this season, so always jump when you run through it. Very important. Flowberry Fizz, perfectly balanced, love it. Moving on to the utility items. The first one is the War Machines Hover Jets. Now, this is kind of the first staple item in this season that I think is like a must carry, in particular in solos and in
It's like broken, right?
We'll see as the season progresses. I think duo.
Bro, everyone's flying around. I don't know how the hell to use these items, but I think they've like nerfed them a bit. But I still need to like change my keybinds and like figure out how to use these.
Is going to be way more important as well.
I actually don't like the mobility this season.
Fly a little bit up into the sky. There's only a
I don't like
limit
it.
that you can fly up. It feels like it's
Last
around
season was
maybe
better.
20 meters. I need to actually check the exact distance, but it's not too far. But you can also dash, which means you can boost around and fly. But if you dash and then immediately press the cancel button, you will actually be propelled forward, and then you can slide from this, and you can basically do this over and over again, which is an incredibly useful mechanic in early game if you want to loot faster, in mid game if you want to rotate, and of course in end game as well if you're trying to just dash and not waste too many materials. You can also do this in fights, which I've not seen that many players do yet, where you can fly around the opponents. You can use it to get angles, you can use it to get
That's
heats and
crazy.
all of these different things, because you can do it whilst having your weapons out and shooting at the same time.
Bro, this in zero
this
builds
is
though.
almost a guaranteed carry in my opinion
lethal.
this season. It's so good. One thing you can also do is heal whilst doing this, so you can use big pots, minis,
Wait,
and mid
what?
hits in end game whilst flying around.
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah,
cool.
Heal off is even more fun this season with this item. This is an incredibly good item.
I
but
actually didn't know
do
that.
think the dash ability needs nerfed a little bit. You can do it way too frequently, and I think the cooldown period really needs to be increased because you can kind of just continually use this
just like
boost
spam it.
over and over again for basically every single rotate, which just conserves you too many materials in my opinion. So I'm actually going to put this in the please nerf tier, but you really don't need to nerf it that much. Next is the War Machine's auto turrets. So this turret basically sits in your inventory.
This is so
and you don't need to
pointless,
switch to it at
right?
all. It just automatically shoots any players
Buff
that
it.
are around a 30-meter radius away from you. Now what it does is it shoots bursts of 3 shots, each of them dealing 5 damage at a time, so it essentially does 15 damage at once. Now, if you're fighting someone, this damage actually does add up pretty quickly, and it can be quite a big deterrent when you're trying to fight someone. The problem is, it's just not really worth the inventory slot that you're carrying.
It's
So
so
you'd probably
pointless
much
in
rather
my
want
opinion.
to carry the War Machine's hoverjet. For me, I'm going to put this into the early game only tier because you pretty much would probably want to drop it for anything else. But Epic Games, this does not mean you want to buff this. Don't make this too good. It would be very annoying then. I think it's in a good place right now. Next is the
Just
Captain
vault
America
it, bro.
shield.
Why-
I've said in my
why does it
extra video
exist?
that I did on my other channel that this is a bit of a sleeper item. I think there's a lot of utility to this that once players start to realize, it's going to be really good. The first one is that it locks on up to any player up to 45 meters away and does 60 damage. And it also can
Wait, it
bounce off
locks
of players
on?
and hit more than one at once. So if someone's on rotate, you can just ping it at anyone as they're starting to fly, which is really good. And I see a lot of players carrying this in the solo cash cup just to annoy people as they rotate, which I can't wait for. It also does 125 structure damage if you throw it at any build, which means if 2 players are carrying them, you can play low ground and throw it at players' floors and knock them down from layers above you and get free refreshes that way. When you sprint with it,
Oh.
you will block any shots from the front, which means that you might have some.
Do you guys
potential
use
to
this in
endgame
comp?
if you're at backside of zone and you want to
Or, like,
sprint to front.
range?
But if you get shot too many times, it ends up stunning you. So
it in
it's
range?
not that useful. But whilst charging here, you can run
Another
into
loophole.
walls and it'll do 150 structure damage. So you can actually just run straight through any weak wall into someone's box, switch your weapon, take a shot on them. Now this is really annoying for zero build, and I very much so understand the zero build players' frustration.
Wait, they've nerfed the Captain America shield since then, or since this video came out. I'm like 100% sure. I forgot what the changes were, but they've had some massive nerfs to this.
Carry there.
So I don't think it's
But
as
for
strong
builds
as
and
it is
tournaments,
here.
I'm just going to put this into the no complaints tier. I was thinking about being perfectly balanced, but I just don't think enough players have started to realize how annoying it can really be here. Last up is the
We're gonna
next
double
mythic
collat.
War Machine's Arsenal. I don't know what they were cooking putting this in competitive, quite frankly. Updates.
It's in comp, bro.
They took it out, so we don't have to worry about this anymore.
I'll let.
It was stupid. And the next utility is the Shield Bubble Junior. Now, ironically, you can actually use this to prevent against the War Machine's arsenal, but the reality is most players are just not carrying Shield Bubble Juniors unless you're playing in zero build, of course. So the reality is, this is an early game.
Yeah, I was gonna say early
Next up is
game, like-
Shockwaves. Now, these are not in competitive. I had some analysis here, but who cares because they're not in comp. The last utility item here is the Armored Wall. Now, we've not seen Armored Walls come back since Chapter 3, and these are something I feel is really well balanced. They can be a little frustrating sometimes. We'll talk about the number of them later, but
Yeah.
just as a utility, I think these are so good. Firstly, they prevent you from getting focused. If you're making a late rotation...
I want to know what you guys think about the armored walls. Like, I feel like this is a really interesting item because Chapter 3, it was like big. And honestly, it's pretty game changing. Like, if this isn't competitive, this is massive. But I want to know what Reset says.
and someone starts spraying you, the lobby starts spraying you, and oftentimes you could waste hundreds of builds. Well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. Tens, dozens of builds. It could ruin your entire game just because you don't have a
W
single armored
keys.
wall there. But with one single armored
nice.
wall, that's just going to stop anyone spraying. People aren't going to waste like 100, 200 ammo to spray through that wall. So you can just place it down, give yourself some time to heal, and you're fine. Same thing can be done in endgame if you're getting sprayed from height, your floor's getting sprayed, you can
Yeah.
just put one above or below you to keep yourself safe. But of course, you know, kids in ranked are always going to be annoying and just have 5 of them and just full box himself in when you get them weak. But of course, this means that they can't escape, which is always also very funny. This is useful in one way, which is if your duo gets knocked, you can actually just full box yourself in and then actually revive him and give them enough time to get up. The chances are this is probably a better play than just letting him die, running away, and hoping the other team doesn't chase you. So it is something that can be done, but again,
I actually really like this item.
because you still have to get out of a full box of armored walls, which is definitely not
Maybe
ideal.
just to
So if
protect
they
me
manage
from
to nerf
sweats.
the stack size, because carrying 15 is quite literally insane. insane, and I think these will fit the meta really well. And moving on to the medallions now.
Whoa.
So for medallions, there are 3 in the game.
Production value.
Bought Siphon medallion. Now this gives you Siphon, obviously 50 HP or shield on Elim. And the reality is this wasn't too good in season 2 when it dropped from the underworld. We did see a lot of like solo cash cup games get really high Elim games. In terms of FNCS, it wasn't actually that amazing. So for me, perfectly balanced. Next is the Emma Frost's reveal medallion, which marks opponents in a wide radius. It does this every 50 seconds, and the marks last for 15
kind
seconds.
of OP.
So essentially, the team holding this, 30% of the time, they will know where everyone is in the lobby. Pretty broken. Actually, it's insanely broken. Let's be real. Now, obviously, this is insanely broken for fights. You've got to think about how important this is going to be in endgame too. Imagine you go to the front side of the zone, you scan, and you see everyone behind you.
Yeah, you just target like anyone you want.
Find players who are crouching behind on low ground.
All the solos.
Or if you're going to find players who have just fought and maybe weak, and you can target them. So
I didn't realize. I didn't even think about
insanely broken for basically getting refreshes. In
OP
the
it is.
For me, I just think we got to remove this from comp. This is very uncompetitive to have one team in the lobby who can just basically find super free refreshes every single game, because that's one of the most important and difficult parts of Fortnite generally. You could nerf it so that rather than pinging every 50 seconds...
I feel like Fortnite comp these days is like there's always going to be an item that like one team has, and if they have it, they're just going to be in like a much better position than any other team.
So that rather than pinging every 50 seconds, it pings every, say, 2 minutes. That would be a much better nerf. And I think that might also work, but in its current state, I think we should probably just remove this from competitive. And the final one is Mysterio's Stealth Medallion. Now, this conceals you when you crouch. You basically go completely invisible, and the effect lasts for 15 seconds, and this effect will be deactivated when you either stand up or you just use another item.
It's kind of a fun medallion.
Useful, but I did see a hilarious clip on Twitter by Twy.
No.
Who essentially used it to sneak into the box, sit right behind them, and get both kills as they pinched them, which was really funny. I think, to be completely honest
such a good clip.
with you, this isn't something that you need to drop, but it's just not that good. It only lasts for 15 seconds. There's a marker above your head.
Realistically, compared to the other two,
drop it anyway. But I do think we're going to see some cool clips from it throughout most of the season. For me, this is going into probably the perfectly balanced tier, because an invisibility item shouldn't be that strong. All right, so what's the overall rating for the full season's meta? So for the fighting meta, so far playing, I've really enjoyed it. I'm not dying to a bunch of stupid stuff like Nitro every single fight. Just running
that is true. No cars.
Or the Nitro fists either. But the thing is, even the really overpowered stuff like the dual micro SMGs have a downside. So they're pretty bad at range, even though they're annoying in your face. And the Captain America shield is kind of annoying for the zero build players. I understand that. I've seen a lot of them complaining. For the Surge meta, there's no DMRs, even though the pistol is really good at that range. I
kind of missed the DMRs
for this. And the Slurp Cacti do not respawn in tournaments, so the Surge meta itself is really good. But if, say, the War Machine's arsenal is removed, the hover jets were nerfed a little bit to kind of maybe not be able to be as spammable with the dash mechanic, then I'd probably give this season a solid 8.5 out of 10. Let me know your guys' rating.
The fish sticks rating.
If you don't know how these cactuses almost ruined FNCS, you can click this video on screen right now.
There's the ranking of every season 4 item. I didn't realize Resub was basing this all on competitive. So his whole tier list is basically for comp. Probably the only thing I don't agree with is the Gatekeeper shotgun being vaulted. That's actually like my favorite shotty of the game right now. But I guess it's like too overpowered, so he's putting it in Volt because it's just too much. I don't know if I preferred last season or this season for competitive. Like last season was more scuff, but mobility was so much better. Well, there we have it. If you guys haven't checked out any of Resub's videos, make sure to check out the rest of his channel, guys. He makes some banging videos. Even this video right here was so well edited. Really good insight, background information on the weapons. But there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys next video. Peace.